Elsa here. I'm just jumping in with a quick caveat for this week's episode to let you know that we recorded it outside and unfortunately the sound quality is just not up to our usual standard. James and I offer our apologies and reassure you that this is the last time we'll try this. All future recordings will happen in a quieter environment, like a public pool or an Aldi. Enjoy!
Do you want to start, or are you still writing notes?
I am jotting down notes, but you always start.
No, I mean,
Hello.
are you ready to go?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm ready to go.
Hello and welcome to Cruise Next. My name is James Albarn and I am joined as ever in St James's Park today, of all places, by Elsa Grace. Hello Elsa, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. I'm on the lookout for geese.
Yeah, we did nearly just get ambushed by a gang.
Yeah, and they're
geese.
walking like they've just walked off of West Side Story, like they're like shoulders up, neck down. Like it's a bit of a cliche, guys.
So last time on the podcast, we discussed 2018's Outlaw King. We dove into the credits of that film and we picked out the Focus Puller Theo Berman, and that has landed us on today's film, The Railway Man.
Well, I'd never been to the Highlands before.
It's very romantic. You romantic?
He's a wonderful man. I've seen it, but he's a mess. I want to know what happened to Eric. I don't believe in this code of silence that you have.
War leaves a mark.
This is the BBC. Allied forces in Singapore have surrendered to the Japanese.
When we surrendered, the Jap said we weren't men. A real man would die of shame.
You have no honor.
You're here to help us.
To build a railway.
If you help, you will have a good war.
But we said no. We'll live to fight you. We'll live for revenge. He's alive. He's alive. And I know where he is. He won't have a clue you're coming.
This is what you're going to do, isn't it?
I'm afraid the museum is closed.
I'm surprised you don't recognize me.
Lomax. I am asking the questions.
You answer.
I did not expect you to be alive.
What happened in that room? What did they do to you? A lot of men went through something you can't imagine. You'd have to let us just cope with it.
My husband isn't coping. I love him, and I want him back.
Will you stand by him, whatever he does?
I have to try.
I have suffered much, but I know you have suffered too. And you mean everything to me. Sometime the hating has to stop.
So, Elsa, tell the lovely listeners all about The Railway Man.
I watched this about 4 hours ago, so I think I'm still a bit shook by it.
Okay.
But okay, we'll go into the summary and then.
Then we can dive in.
So, 2013, directed by Jonathan Tiblitsky. This film actually had a pretty strong public reception. It got 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, which for Rotten Tomatoes is never bad. For Rotten Tomatoes, that's that is an acceptable score. No, but people are brutal on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I suppose.
And a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb.
Ah, there you go.
It was based on the 1995 autobiography written by Eric Lomax, a POW's searing account of war, brutality and forgiveness, The Railway Man. So it is a true story. True stories are always a hard one to watch, aren't they? They always carry a bit more weight. But Last Week was a true story, but it was from the medieval period.
So
this film is based in the 1980s, and essentially we are following the sort of PTSD recovery of Eric Lomax, who was held as an Allied POW, prisoner of war, in World War II, and was forced, among hundreds of others, to build the Thai-Burmese railway by the Japanese military. And so we sort of flash back to World War II and see what happened to him there, and flash forward again to the 1980s. The film begins with him meeting his wife, Patty, on a train. They subsequently fall in love, and his PTSD becomes completely overbearing, takes over his life. He's really struggling. His best friend, played by Stellan Skarsgård, who was with him, as well as a POW, commits suicide, and his wife starts to get really terrified that this is going to be his fate. And she, through Stellan, or his character Finley, happens upon the information that the Japanese
Kanbei Tai.
yeah,
So.
who kept him, who tortured him, is still alive and is still there. And she sort of says to him, I think you should go and see this man and confront him and bury your demons. And that is the film.
That is the film.
That is the film. And spoiler alert, he does. He goes back and he finds him.
Yeah, he first goes to. His intention is to kill him.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, he ends up forgiving him, and they become friends.
Let's just say it. I cried. Did you cry?
I cried at the end. Yeah.
I cried at the end. I was already pretty emotional.
We're being harangued by another goose.
Geese?
Goose? Are you a goose or a geese?
I was pretty emotional at the end, but the bit that got me was they did that thing where they bring up photos of the real people, and that got me. That was when I sort of, it breached the barrier of my tear duct.
What was your? Let's first go into what was your thoughts about this film? What were you've watched it 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
So probably not a lot of time to process it. But
it was heavy watching for a Monday morning, I'll tell you.
But what are your current conclusions coming off this film?
I think it had moments of real beauty, but I think it also had moments where I think the writing slightly let it down. The opening of the film, the scene in the train carriage with Nicole Kidman and Colin Firth is meeting Eric Lomax and Patty, like their original, falling in love, blah, 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 was so weird and really starty and stoppy. And actually those two actors do have a lot of chemistry together. They've been together in other things, and as the film went on, I did feel the chemistry a lot more, but in that, it just felt so weird.
Colin Firth actually requested Nicole Kidman to play his wife.
Well, so originally Rachel Weisz was cast, and she couldn't do it because, what was she filming? She was filming something else.
The Bourne Legacy.
Oh, was it? I don't think Nicole Kidman was bad casting by any means. I think she played this character and a kind of dowdy middle-aged woman, which she doesn't often do. I think she played that very well. Although, again, there was that weird moment in the start where he was like, "Oh, you're probably too young to get my reference," and I was just a bit like,
"It's like your age."
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think the dialogue in that was very good, and it sort of threw me as to what I was watching, because I tried not to research it too much beforehand. I thought it was some very badly written rom-com.
Right.
Which wasn't what it was. Well, not com. I didn't think it was going to be it was just a rom. But then I do think it got better, and I think he acted incredibly well in it, Colin Firth. I think Jeremy Irvin was outstanding.
Yes.
As a young Colin Firth.
We were just saying before we started recording, the Jeremy Irvine completely embodied a young Colin Firth.
He had the
Like,
tonality, the
voice was
intonation,
perfect.
how he is with his glasses, the little movements, the little adjustments. I don't know how much time he spent in character with Colin in character. Maybe none at all, but that was really, really excellent. I know you said that it's a good actor if you can look that attractive but play a convincing railway enthusiast. But actually,
that's probably unfair on railway enthusiasts as well.
Probably. Is that why you said it when we weren't recording?
Yeah.
I just landed you in it. If you like trains, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And there's probably loads of good-looking railway enthusiasts out there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like taking trains. Is that the same? Not really. He was maybe a bit too good looking.
I don't know, Colin Firth is a good looking man though, isn't he?
Is he?
Well, classic. People love Colin Firth. People are well into Colin Firth.
Yeah, but that's from back in the day. That's Pride and Prejudice and coming out of the lake with a wet
Yeah, but this is what I mean.
on,
He's playing that version, isn't he? He's playing the young Colin Firth.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So Colin Firth would have been that sexy back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Regardless, I thought that he played it very well. He didn't play it sexy in any way.
No.
He was a very endearing kind of nerdy character, quite naive seemingly, but then when he has his sort of moment of great bravery, it's desperately sad, isn't it? You almost feel like you're I got this, but it feels like all you can think of is it's someone's son. He's so raw and vulnerable, and he starts screaming for his mum and his dad. Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah.
When they're torturing him, and I thought he was really outstanding in this role in this film. Yeah, I think there's a lot to commend this film, but there were bits that that lost me a little bit. Did you know that Eric Lomax actually sort of helped co-write this?
Oh, interesting.
Just before he passed away. He was 91, I think, when they went to meet with him. Colin went with one of the writers, Colin Firth, and they had quite a long conversation with him, and the film clearly had his blessing. It was released just the year after his passing. I don't know if you ever saw an edit, but yeah, I think they kept it very true to the book.
Yeah, I think for me, everything you said is true. I think the problem I had with the film, and I liked the film. I thought it made me cry at the end, and so in a sense, it did its job in some way. It made me feel something at the end. But what I couldn't discern at the end was whether I was feeling those feelings because of the fact that I knew it was a true story.
Yeah.
And that it was the weight of the actual story that was making me emotional, or whether it was the actual film itself, because I found it actually really quite hard for quite a lot of the film to actually care that much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think in the I'm going to call them modern scenes in inverted commas, because obviously it's set in the 80s, but in the sort of the present day stuff where you spend quite a lot of time away from Colin Firth because of the nature of his post-traumatic stress. He's shutting himself out from everyone, which also means he shuts himself out from the viewer, I think. And it's quite hard to sort of feel for Colin. I can feel from him from a point of view of he's obviously going through a lot, but you didn't. I felt like you didn't really spend much time with him other than when he was his younger self, and that was the stuff I cared about. And then the modern day stuff was the stuff that I felt a little bit cold towards. Even when Stellan Skarsgård kills himself, which again, Cruise Next is filling up with horrible hanging scenes in films.
That was, I mean, it was a very deliberate suicide, wasn't it? He said, I'm going to send him a sign that he can't refuse, that he needs to go and confront this guy for both of us, and he hangs himself over a railway line. It's just awful, just so horrible.
But
I'm surprised to hear you say that you were detached from it.
Yeah, and I only really became attached to it in the sort of final, I would say, I mean, I don't know how, but actually I wasn't looking at the clock, but maybe like the final 20 minutes, the final sort of sequence where Colin Firth finally goes to meet and confront the Campe Thai officer.
That was the most that he speaks in the whole film.
Yeah.
Even in the initial scene, the opening, Nicole Kidman does most of the talking. I think he has maybe 6 lines. Yeah, he really doesn't show that much of himself, does it? Which is why I think maybe again I thought Colin Firth did so well, is because it's all in the eyes.
Oh yeah,
it's all in his face.
I'm not. It's not a criticism of Colin Firth's
acting. I know.
I think it's just the nature of the story and the structure of it made it quite hard for me to engage with his character when he's an older man until, which I guess maybe you could argue is like the point. You know, maybe he's not letting us in, he's not letting his wife in, he's not letting his friend in, so by that very nature we're supposed to feel slightly more detached from him until the end. There was a moment where he's like walking towards the room in which he confronts it. It's awful. What we should really get the character. Nagaze? Is that how you would pronounce Nagaze?
What are you saying?
Nagaze. That's the.
Oh yeah, I think it's Nagaze, but I don't.
When he goes to confront him, there's a shot of Colin Firth, and his eyes are like. They're like dead. It's almost like all the love from his eyes has just like completely drained, and it's quite an incredible like performance in that moment, I think, from Colin Firth. But I think one of the most impactful performances for me was Hiroyuki Sanada, who is the older Nagase, and the way he breaks down in tears at the end when
he says, "I don't want to live that day anymore."
Yeah, that I think was part of the thing that really like struck me at the end.
I think it's a very, it's quite a confronting ending, I think. That sort of forgiveness, I don't think many people have the capacity for that. I don't think I have the capacity for that. Like, I think it's one thing to do, you know, to spend your life doing the work to forgive what this man and those soldiers did to you personally, but it's also what they did to hundreds and hundreds of other innocent men, to your friends who were murdered, who were buried in, you know, unmarked graves. Like, it's, I think maybe that's what moved me so much at the end, was I just found the capacity for forgiveness astounding. And I think I wouldn't have been so moved if it wasn't a true story. Same reasons as you're saying, but I think not because I'm like, oh, it's so sad that this event happened. Obviously it is, it's completely tragic, but I think it just even more moved me that I was like, I actually can't believe. And that, you know, Patty was standing there as they were having this exchange. I just think I would have flown at that man and torn his eyes out. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was so, I thought it was so powerful. I agree. I think Hiro's performance was incredible in it, for sure. But I think the young Takeshi also was fantastic. I think he played it really well between being, like, coming across as, like, soulless and evil. And then at points you're like, does he know? Like, does he know that Colin Firth is absolutely telling the truth? Like, logic dictates what he's saying is completely the truth, and yet he's still, like, is he truthfully translating right now to the other soldiers what he's saying? Like,
and that's a brilliant thing the film does as well, I think, is that they doesn't give you subtitles.
Yeah, I thought that was really good as well. But so it's the combination of those two things, and then also every now and again there's like a flicker of when you're in older Takeshi Nagase's flashback, you're kind of seeing the side of him that is actually just a very, very young man who is very, very afraid, potentially, of his own army and what they would do to him if he doesn't conform. And, you know, like, I thought there were a lot of subtleties like that in the film that were very good.
I'm not really used to entertaining, as you'll see.
What are you doing?
I was just going to get a stir.
Good heavens.
But the bottom of the
Sit
pan's
down.
going to burn. So masterful. Masterful, but wrong.
We shall see.
I might nip out for a Brillo pad for the burn marks on the bottom of the pan.
Don't move.
Why not?
Because I'm looking at you.
I will say, I think, and don't get me wrong, because I don't this would have been a very different film, and I don't think it's the film that I want it to be, but I think would maybe one of the reasons why it was, like, kind of hard to connect with, for the cinematography for this, had it been maybe a little bit more frenetic or a bit more gritty or a bit more, like, it was all very sort of, a lot of it was just on sticks. A lot of it, do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of it was sort of made to look very, not pleasing to the eye, obviously, because we're watching someone be tortured a lot of the time, but, like, it was very aesthetically framed. And maybe if it was a bit more like guerrilla style, it would have been a bit more like, I don't know.
It's hard to know, really, isn't it? Because I think sometimes that kind of camera work can really work for a film. I'm thinking of something like, you know, if you think of Paul Greengrass's films like Captain Phillips or United 93, where, especially with United 93, where it feels like you are on that plane and they have put you there, and it feels like a documentary crew is basically there. Then for that kind of film, it really works because there's a claustrophobia to it. I think with this, it's tricky to know whether that would have been a better choice, because
it would have been a very different.
It would have been a
film,
very
right?
different film, but I think there is also something to be said for, just those waterboarding scenes, where you are just, the camera is just still, and it's almost like you're just,
They're
like,
forcing you to watch.
yeah, it's like unflinching. It's like, right, this is it. This is what happened to him. There's nothing there trying to make it immersive. It's like, it's just an unflinching account, essentially. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's hard to know which would be better, you know, without seeing the other version.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I said I don't know if that would have been the film that I want, but as we're talking about it, I think maybe having two different styles in the film could have worked quite well. Like,
Yeah.
especially like when older Eric is having his sort of PTSD flashbacks and moments, like when he goes to stab the bailiff, when he is screaming on the floor on his, you know, honeymoon night, like maybe going handheld. You do know what I mean? Like maybe just something a bit more edgy could have really suited that moment, and then we could have used the same ones for the flashbacks back to World War II. Just to kind of link them, because it's the fragmentation of his mind, I'm thinking.
But then you would also have a sense of, you know, if his you would get a sense of like distinction between the two threads a bit more, because I think really the stuff in the 80s up until he goes to meet Takeshi is very much, it is kind of Nicole Kidman's film for a lot of that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is her and Stellan Skarsgård talking with each other.
He's alive. And he's living off it. Showing the railway to tourists. Bridge on the bloody River Kwai holidays. Now, guess I've had it translated. Look him up. He won't have a clue you're coming.
The years I've spent imagining I'd found him, making him beg, making him scream. Oh, I've nursed myself to sleep on those sounds.
I also think I didn't love the grading in this film. I thought it was just a bit too... It was quite like Australia, Baz Luhrmann's Australia. Like, there was just a certain amount of it that I was like, it doesn't need to look this pretty. I just thought it could be a bit rawer in the way it was shot.
I think there was something interesting for me in terms of, I think the instinct on these things would have been to have gone like less saturated colours in the flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, there was something I mean, maybe you're right in terms of like, maybe it's a little too bright and a little too polished, but there's something for me about the colours being quite saturated and warm in the flashback scenes that actually for me gave it a sense of like the unbearable heat that they're all in, and they all look sweaty and they're all just, do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I disagree. I hate when films do that. It's like that classic like movie set trope of the, we better let them know that we're shooting in Morocco, so let's show some pictures of sand dunes. We'll get a camera in there. We'll get a woman with a scarf on her head going, ah.
No,
like,
that's
it was all, put the filters on, guys.
That's
like,
not the same. That's not what I'm saying.
We get it. You're in Thailand. Like,
but I think it would have been so. I also think it would have looked so drab if we'd have just had yet another. If you think about, I think there's a trend for like war films, like going back to like. I feel like Saving Private Ryan is like one of the first sort of like the sort of the iconic one to remember that people always base the look off, where it's just so like desaturated and like there's hardly any colour and it's just like drab, and it's like I know what they're doing. It's like to say like, hey, it's gritty and it's muddy and it's horrible and it's grim, but it actually, for me, like the idea of, the scenes shot in Britain were actually more like that. Yeah. And actually, there was something quite interesting about that. Like I said, maybe they pushed it too far on the flashback stuff. Like maybe it was too bright and too saturated. But I just think when Eric's in Britain in the 80s, he's not really Eric anymore. Do you know what I mean? And he still is Eric when he's a young man at war. He's got that. There's those, right until he's tortured. He's still like. There's interesting sort of flickers of his character. The way he sort of talks back to Takeshi a little bit around the receiver and the monitor, receiver versus transmitter
discussion. Like, how and he's like tell me what
trying
part
to
you
explain
speak into.
To him.
Yeah.
And I felt like having it that way round was quite interesting for me and worked for me. But yeah, I agree. Maybe they pushed it a little bit too far the other way.
I will say though that I think it's quite refreshing, and this is like an area of history that I'm very interested in, and I've seen so many films around World War II, but so often they're written around Europe's experience.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely a side of it that is not often, it's not that well known about. It's not discussed really that much, is it?
Yeah,
Like,
well, also the whole, the thing right at the start of the flashbacks where they're
talking about the...
Well, they get told to, they basically get told, right, we're surrendering.
Yeah.
You know, it's come down from on high, we're giving up, and now you've just got to go with these Japanese soldiers and basically do what you're told.
Yeah.
And what they're basically being told to do, most of them, and Lomax and his friends are lucky in the sense that they're engineers. They're even told they're lucky that they're engineers. You know, because for a lot of the others, they're just doing the horrible, gritty work of actually building the railway,
which, you know, killed a lot of
Yeah.
men. A lot of men died from exhaustion, starvation, and infection out there. It wasn't so much the torture, which obviously was awful and fairly prominent. Yeah, I mean, especially with, like, in terms of Japan and the US, Pearl Harbor's been done a bunch of times, isn't it? But
Yeah.
you never really hear about the foot soldiers on the ground of, like, Southeast Asia. And Thailand didn't exist then. It was Japan occupied. Like, yeah, I thought that was interesting. I feel like I definitely learned a little bit.
Well, I'd never been to the Highlands before, so suddenly, well, finding myself single again, so to speak, I thought I'd like to see them. So, I'm going to go up as far as Malaysia by train, and then I'm catching the coach to Inverness and coming down the other side. What do you think?
The West Coast is extraordinarily beautiful. You might well fall in love with it.
And if I were to fall in love, what then?
Well, instead of a coach to Inverness, you might consider taking the line back to Tyndrum and changing for Oban. And from there you can get any number of boat trips. Iona, Staffa. It's very romantic. You romantic?
I have to be in Edinburgh by Wednesday.
I think the start of the film is worth lasering in on a little bit because it is, like you said earlier, it is kind of odd the way it starts this film. Because...
And the music's a little jostly and, you know, and
yeah,
it's
and so they
sunny
meet
and-
on the train and you cut back and forth between Colin Firth telling this story at the Veterans Club that he's met Nicole Kidman. The other guys at the Veterans Club don't actually seem very friendly with him.
No, although there is a moment with, you know, Stellan Skarsgård when he's like, Finley, he sort of goes, yeah, and what are you going to do about it? Why are you
Yeah.
still here? Like, go to her. And you're like, oh, actually, he is invested in Colin's character.
And then...
It was odd. It was off-putting. It was very strange.
And so he then goes to her. You have the sort of the scene where she's at his house and they kiss, and then she says, I don't like kissing a man with a moustache, and he's like, what if I took off the moustache? And then she's like, yes, I would like that. And then it cuts to them getting married, and then suddenly, this was also the thing that was a little bit jarring for me at first, was that I didn't get the impression before Colin Firth married Nicole Kidman, before Lomax married Patty, that he was struggling.
Yeah.
And then they are in their hotel room together post getting married, and he suddenly collapses on the floor
And starts screaming.
And then suddenly from that point onwards he is
A mess.
basically gone to the world. There is no sort of progression. There's no sense before he meets her that he might be struggling a little bit.
But then
he's trying
is
to keep
that
it down.
because our only reliable narrator is Nicole Kidman? So as far as she's concerned, those problems didn't exist before they were living together and married because she didn't know that they existed. So maybe we're only letting to see them as an audience
then
member
the problem
because that's
with
when
that-
she sees them.
For me, that then doesn't scan, because why do we see a scene with Colin Firth recounting this story of how he met Nicole Kidman at the Veterans Club? Do you see what I mean? The narrator is all over the place. Who is the narrator of this film? Is all over the place.
But he's not behaving, I would say, socially typical, neurotypical. He's sitting on his own. He's not making eye contact with the other men. Even when he's talking to them, he uses very short, abrupt sentences. He's looking through an old railway book, like, of railway times. Like, he's not.
Yeah, but the impression. Yeah, but the impression you get at that point is like, oh, he's just a bit quiet. Like, he's not. It doesn't come across that.
Yeah, but that's my point. That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, he comes across as normal until we're let into his private life and his marital bed, and then it's like, oh no, actually, he is totally broken.
Yeah, I don't know.
And before that, we only see him at the Veterans Club.
I mean, maybe it's supposed to feel jarring, right? But
why was he on the train? Does it say?
I can't remember. To be honest, I did struggle with those two train scenes, with that train scene at the start.
Yeah, so it was boring as hell.
I struggled to focus. I couldn't tell you what they were talking about.
Trains.
And he goes, and then the thing over there, and you're like, oh, I don't care. And then I got really distracted by the lamp.
What lamp?
The lamp on the in between them on the train.
Oh.
For some reason, it really distracted me because basically they have a conversation, and it plays out in like a shot reverse, and in Colin Firth's close-up you never see this lamp. Then it cuts to shots of the countryside and stuff to simulate the train, passage of time and that. Then it cuts back to a close-up of Colin Firth, and suddenly there's this huge lamp in his shot, and it's not.
Is the frame the same, or is it a mid-close-up?
No, so the frame's the same, but what they're actually doing is they're slightly moving as Colin Firth leans in and out. So they're like moving the camera so the lamp comes into view. But the problem is, before they cut out to the outside the train, you never see the lamp in that shot.
Oh, so it's not a goof.
No, it's not, and it's not. It's not at all. I wasn't saying it is, but at first I thought it was until I realised what it was. But it really I was like, where's that lamp come from?
Yeah, I don't think that's
really
so much
threw me.
The crew's fault as it is. You were clearly not gripped by that scene, so your brain was like,
point.
Let's find something else to watch.
I was not blaming the crew. What I'm saying is,
I get what you mean now.
The problem is with that is I should not have been focusing on where that lamp came from.
Yeah.
Because if I'd have been engaged in that scene, I wouldn't have been thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think for the movie opener, that's not good.
Yeah. It didn't give a good first impression of like what the film was going to be. If you'd have walked into the cinema and said, one for the railway man, please, not knowing any, it's got Colin Firth and Nicole Kidman in, that'll be good, it's probably about trains. And then you go in and you watch that first scene, you go, oh, it's like a romantic thing, and then that's nice, and Colin Firth, he's a bit bumbling, like Colin Firth can be. And then, oh my God, suddenly... Actually, that was done very well. Where Colin... When you get the first hit of the flashback, where old Colin Firth is on his bed, and then he sees... Stood next to the bed, the young Takeshi, and he goes, come with me, and you're sort of led through this corridor. I thought that was done very well.
In that, I was like, is he hallucinating? Is he really walking out the building? Does he think he's with this guy?
Yeah.
Is he, like, yeah.
I thought that was done very well.
My husband isn't coping.
War leaves a mark, Mrs. Lomax.
But I don't believe in this code of silence that you have. I really don't. And you may be determined to stay screwed up and suffer for the rest of your life, but I don't want that for Eric, and I can't live like that. He's a wonderful man. I've seen it. I love him, and I want him back.
Funnily enough as well, Cruise Next, the podcast about film crews, we have just been slightly invaded by
a crew. Yeah,
like
we're clearly sat exactly where they were hoping to film.
Well,
I think someone's going to ask us to move soon.
Yeah.
Let's play Spot the PA. Or let's play, this is better, spot the AC. I'm going to say that it's the guy with all the clips on his belt, all the clips. Where's your take?
Any final closing thoughts on The Railwayman before we get completely moved on?
No. I think it was a very good film. I do think it could have been better. I think it definitely did justice to the pain of the men that were the POWs. I also just think, look, I think I'm slightly more polite and I'm a bit more reined in when I know it's a true story and I know that people have really lived through that hell. Like, I think I'm reluctant to be like, nah, this was shit. And maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should be more.
That doesn't work because there are some true story films that are blatantly awful.
Yeah, and I don't think this was awful.
No, it's not at all.
I do think it could have been better. I don't think it was great. I feel like I could vote for this. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to say. Was that final shot of Colin Firth in Thailand, that was shot on location, and it was the famous bridge on the River Kwai. Yeah. And I thought that was quite cool. That also made me a bit emotional.
Yeah, I think, despite my criticism, I did come away thinking that was worth a watch. And I mean, purely.
Will we watch it again?
No,
probably not. No,
but purely clearly an incredible story, and you can totally see why this was made into a film, and why you would want to take this story and make it into a film. Incredible story. I loved the touch at the end of. It's not a completely unheard of thing, but to put the pictures of them up in real life and how close, actually, here's a good point, how close did Jeremy Irvine look to the young Lomax? I thought it was incredible.
So astoundingly similar.
Incredible.
Looked like Colin Firth and looked like the real young Eric Lomax.
Yeah.
Like the casting in this was
very good.
Very good. Very, very good.
And like you've heard, I have some criticisms of it. I think there are places where it's slightly lacking, but I think the emotional impact at the end really hit, and there are some very well done scenes. There's some very good acting. So yeah, check it out. What would you rate it out of? See, usually I do a little comedy. What would you rate it out of how many?
It doesn't feel appropriate now, does it?
What would you rate it out of 5 Jeremy Irvines? There you go. That's it.
That was very good of you. I would have said train timetables. I rate it 2.7 out of 5 Jeremy Irvines.
Okay.
Because I think it's better than half, and I don't know if it's as good as 3. No, that's 3. I'll say it's 3.
I was going to give it a 3.
Okay, 3 Jeremy Irvines.
Cool. So there you go. That was 2013's The Railway Man. Now it is time to dive into the credits of that film. I've picked out 3 crew members for Elsa to choose from, and from one of those crew members we will land at our next film.
I really hope that you've picked some happy films. I don't think we need any more true war films.
No.
For a while.
I've picked, I don't know if they're happy, but they are all sort of,
Okay.
You'll be fine with them. You may have actually seen a couple of these, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, first of all, we have the second assistant director in the UK shoots, because there was a lot of units going all over the place, Ray Kenny.
Okay.
We've got the additional stunt assistant in Australia, which I think is where they shot a lot of the flashback stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Instead of Thailand? I think Thailand, they literally just went there for the bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, I think so. Toby Fuller, and we have the casting associate, Natalie Wall.
Natalie what?
Wall, as in a wall you jump over. For some reason, I found it really difficult then to say wall.
Yeah, you really did.
Yeah.
I was like... What did she do? She was assisting casting.
She was a casting associate.
Oh. See, I did say that the casting was really good.
You did?
But I am an AD, and so I do feel a slight loyalty to my ADs out there. So I'm going to go for Ray Kenny.
So, therefore, we will be watching next the Alex Garland directed sci-fi film Ex Machina.
I have seen Ex Machina. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some stuff to say about that.
Okay, so join us next time when we will be watching Ex Machina. Thank you very much for listening. If you do like the podcast, then, you know, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with whoever, and we will see you next time as a helicopter flies over us. Goodbye.
Also, can I just add real quick before we end, because we didn't say it, and I don't know why I feel really bad about this. Rest in peace, Eric Lomax, because he passed away just before the film came out. And
Patty passed away later, didn't she? Or is she still alive?
She was with him when he passed, but I think...
Oh, okay. She's still
R.I.P.
dead?
And, yeah.
Okay.
All the boys.
And
That's not funny. It sounded funny. I'm meant to be sincere.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that heartwarming tribute there at the end, Elsa. and goodbye.
I meant it!